We're checking to see if our Zoom panelists can hear us. William or Rebecca, can you come off mute and tell us if you can hear us?
I can hear you.
Thanks, Pat. So maybe Rebecca and Will are just away from their computers.
I can hear you too.
Thank you, William. We're gonna get started in just a minute. We were just seeing if anyone else was gonna join us in person. Rebecca is, there she is.
Hello. I hereby call the meeting of the City of Milwaukee Budget Committee to order. This meeting is being held in person. The public is invited to watch live on the city's YouTube channel, Comcast Cable Channel 30 in the city limits, or via Zoom using the link on the meeting webpage. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during the community comment time and during the public hearing. Written comments may be submitted by email to finance@milwaukeeoregon.gov. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards and email inbox. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation services at least 48 hours before the meeting, and translation services are also available in other languages. So we'll begin as usual with introductions, starting with me, Leslie Schachner, Budget Committee Chair, and I will now.
Lisa Beatty, Mayor.
Mary Rose, Citizen Member.
Robert Massey, City Council President.
Matt Deeds, Assistant Finance Director.
Michael Osborne, Finance Director.
Emma Sagor, City Manager.
Sophie Sherman-Burton, Citizen Member.
Rebecca Stavengard, City Council.
Okay.
And online we have William.
William Johnson, Community Member.
Okay. You guys have to remind me because I don't remember that. Okay, having completed our introductions, we will now move on to the approval of the minutes. And I usually ask if anyone has any comments or corrections to the minutes of April 27th. We're doing 2 minutes, right? April 27th. Does anybody have anything they want to raise? Okay, so I'm going to speak. I have been working really since I've been on the Budget Committee the second time to try and make sure that the grammar and flow of language and so on is clear in the minutes, recognizing that our budget people are not, master editors. And so I do have a number of edits that are predominantly completing sentences or clarifying. I don't want to read through all of them. So I would like to ask whether or not you are comfortable enough with me giving them to Michael and having them make those edits. Is that something that everybody?
And then review them before the next meeting to approve, or what are you proposing?
Well, if we can redo them before the next meeting, but they're minor grammatical, typographical. So,
Well, so
Just a reminder to put your mic on so that the Zoom audience can hear you.
on council, I mean, we do have the notion of things that are Scrivener's errors.
Scrivener's errors, right.
Yeah, things that are grammatical, purely grammatical and not substantive, that we generally say the staff can make. We can go ahead and approve and the staff can make that change. So I
So
guess just the
that's-
question is, do they all fall in that? Yeah.
yeah, I think they do. I think they do. Although I have to say, there were a couple of places where I actually didn't understand what was being talked about. And if I can manage to pull them up, I will look at them. So, do you want to raise your question now about the? Is that I'm not sure if it's in the second minutes.
statement of
Oh,
minutes,
okay, okay. So, having said that, is there an agreement that I should just give those to the staff and let them make it, and we can approve them? Do I hear a motion? Or are you uncomfortable?
So why don't we, how about this? I move that we approve the minutes of the April 27th, which is kind of ironic because I wasn't here, so I don't know if I should be making the motion, but I move that we approve the minutes of the April 27th meeting with the chair's suggested edits as treated as Scrivener's errors, leaving it open to staff to bring them back if they think they are more than
Oh, that's
Scrivener's
a
errors.
very good motion.
A second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes for the meeting of May 4th, 2024. And again, I have the same sort of comments, mostly edits, but I've also a couple of questions. So does anybody else have questions before I?
Well, I did have one that I sent to Michael a short while ago, off of page 7. Counselor Adma asked what properties the city, there's some grammatical error there probably, where the city pays property taxes. And then there's a response that the city facilities are exempt, but we'll look into what buildings pay the property taxes. So that whole exchange just wasn't very clear to me, and I didn't remember it.
I have that here as follow-up. So I believe Shane was asking, or Councilor Abna, what property the city pays property taxes on. And there's 4 locations, and they're all related to revenue producing properties in the city. One is the Milwaukie Food Cart Station. One is a well tower, water tower. Another is the shared parking lot
The
with
antenna
Metro.
on top of the water tower?
Yes. And one is a T-Mobile cell site that's on top of the water tower.
Okay. I actually rewrote that sentence. If I say it, tell me if it is clear. He asked what city properties pay property taxes.
Excuse me, what was that? Or,
Rewrite Shane's comment as Shane asked what city properties pay property taxes.
okay, we can make that clarification.
Then I think it's.
And so they
pretty clear.
pay tax on the substance of it. They pay taxes to the city and the county and everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're revenue generating properties for the city, which makes them not excluded,
Not tax exempt.
not tax exempt. Is there any other questions?
I did have another question in, no, that's minor, that's fine. I gotta look for my, question marks. Oh, and at the very end, there's on page 12, member Chittison clarified the police personnel is higher than 3%. I don't recall what that relates to, and it's not clear if it's a question about staff or money. I mean, I think that maybe somebody could check the
Recording.
recording. Because I think it relates to, not that he clarified, but he was asking why the police personnel line item was higher than 3%. That's what I think he was asking. But maybe you could check that.
Yeah, we can clarify that.
Okay. So, can you state that motion again?
Before you do that, going back to the substance of the water tower and so is the service provider paying the taxes or the city paying the taxes?
I believe the city is, the city
The city is paying taxes to who?
to the county, and which I think would trickle back to ourselves because we're
Okay.
generating revenue from that property. So that revenue
That is subject to
taxed.
county taxes.
Yes.
So do we pay the taxes just on the revenue produced and not like, you've got an antenna on top of the water tower? Are we paying some value of the whole water tower in taxes? Or are we just paying value on the revenue produced by
I
having
don't know
the lease?
100%, but I would say that we're paying it on the whole water tower
Wow,
as a whole.
wow.
Can you look into that?
Yeah.
Because yeah, right, that's,
I remember when we were wanting to they added a tower out at JCB somewhere. They added another, or when we bought the adjacent property, there was a cell tower on it or something. And yeah, I don't remember at the time the discussions about having to pay taxes on that. And then what's the cost benefit analysis of having them if you have to pay taxes on them, I guess, yeah.
Rebecca wants to speak.
My goose. My understanding is that if a public property there's a portion of business being done at that property, then that portion of the property is subject to property tax. So for example, this is a public building. If we leased the second floor to a private organization, the second floor footprint would be the portion that's subject to the percentage of property tax of this entire building. I am not a tax professional, but I've picked up a few things over the years.
That's 100%.
Stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's 100% true. I'm just wondering how they exclude just the antenna for the property tax. So I can follow up with the county and ask them that.
yeah, that would be good to know. And I guess
Microphone.
the other thing, that occurred to me in reading the minutes, and I talked to Michael about this, is that there were a number of points in the minutes where the committee members asked for something to be followed up. And I think it would be really helpful and to have that list with a timeline and responsibilities done, sort of, maybe even before the next meeting, just as this is where we are on this, and we will then be able to talk about it at the next meeting, because we'll have seen And some of the answers may already be just done. Some of them may require more time, but some will be done.
I think that's an excellent idea and something that we might add like follow-up items from the previous meeting.
Oh, that would
we have
be-
To the agenda.
That would
We
be
can just
great.
go
I think
point
that
by
would be a
point.
really good thing to add. Anybody else feel the same? Okay, okay. Now, I think that we are ready to entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the May 4th meeting minutes with the understanding that the chair's comments and suggestions will be submitted as scrivener's errors, and if the staff determines that some do not qualify as scrivener's errors, they are free to come back to us at the next meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so, oh, thanks, Judy.
William, we need to have your vote on record. Do you vote aye?
Aye.
And do you vote aye on both?
Yes.
Thank you.
We're to agenda item 4, community comments. At this time, we will open the meeting up to any community members that would like to discuss any city business other than the city budget with the committee. The city budget will have a separate public hearing for those wishing to speak to the committee. Those wishing to speak that are not at City Hall, please email finance@milwaukieoregon.gov or raise your hand in Zoom by dialing the *9 to raise your hand. You can also write a comment in the Zoom chat to indicate you would like to speak. Before you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to finance@milwaukieoregon.gov. As the committee has other business items on the agenda, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Because the information provided during community comments may be new, staff will respond at the next committee meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Are there any members of the community that wish to speak?
I don't believe we have any in City Hall. We have one community member viewing online, but I do not see their hand up or any comments in the chat. So I do not believe they wish to provide comment. I'm stretching this out to give them a chance to raise their hand if they want to. I still don't see a hand up, so I think
Okay.
we're good.
Okay. Then we will now move on to the city manager update, which will be provided by next city manager, Emma Sager. That's
Thank
new to me.
you.
Congratulations.
And I guess I get to do the fun thing, which is announce that it was a budget committee baby bonanza last week. We welcome to the world Calvin Cheatzazon on 8/23. This is a beautiful picture of little Calvin. We don't have a picture up there, but Councilor Kosarabadi and his wife Gabby welcomed Amira Rose Kosarabadi on Friday. So very exciting to have both Friday. Yeah, 2 new budget committee babies. We love it. All right, next slide, Michael. And again. So I'm just going to give kind of a rundown of some updates around the city from the last, sorry, it's so loud, Sophie. I know I'm very, very aware of how loud I am. But of things that happened over the last quarter that, relate to things we shared with you at our last budget hearing. And then we'll talk a little bit about priorities looking ahead and a couple supplemental budget asks that we plan to bring to council. We made a commitment during our budget process that going forward, we will align any supplemental budget asks to the quarters that we come to you for budget committee. A, to keep us just more organized. It's easier to do that than do it at an ad hoc level. And B, that we're in a tight budget year. So I think that keeping our budget as up to date as possible and making those supplemental adjustments if needed at that quarterly timescale will keep us really clear about what's needed.
So the budget any budget adjustments will be brought to the budget committee, regular meeting, and then to the council.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so we've scheduled those out into our council forecaster going forward. Okay, next slide, or next thing. So there's lots going on in Milwaukee. It's been a busy summer. Next one, Michael. Active summer season is winding down, and it's been a great one. We had another year of Porch Fest and a great series of concerts in the park, and lots of other just fun First Friday and other events happening around the city. I wanted to give an update. One of the new things in this budget was a bit of a reallocation of some money in the city manager's office to create something called the Milwaukie Community Events Fund. This was an effort to try to give some funds out to our community to increase the number of events that are happening in Milwaukee, but not necessarily by the city putting them on. We had 8 applications, which was so exciting for the very first round. The Equity Steering Committee met last week to review those and decided to fully fund 2 of them. I don't think I'm going to wait and let the Equity Steering Committee announce which ones those are. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but they're very exciting events that will happen in the next quarter. And then we'll do a round of the fund again, starting in January to fund things for the spring. So it's really exciting to see that happen. Paving season is complete, which was great. We paved a lot of roads around the city, grind and pave and grind and inlay. Next one, Michael. Lots of construction activity. Next one, which includes progress along our CIP. We're making good progress on the Washington CIP project, including paving 27th this week. Continued work on the Monroe Greenway. There's an open house in September. I just talked about grind and pave, slurry seal. We've done some work on 29th Avenue Greenway, some striping and more signage. And then King Road design is moving along, and we're preparing for an RFP on that. Lots of private development happening too. I'm going to talk about some of those stats when I talk about one of our supplemental budget asks in just a second. We have been busy in our urban renewal area. We just launched our business improvement grant program, which we're super excited for. That will fund tenant improvements and storefront improvements and some business consulting with businesses operating in the URA. We're doing a lot to become a more data-driven city, and we're starting to develop some performance metrics with the partnership of council, our equity steering committee, and our staff strategic plan work groups. Lots of hiring in public works. We have 3 new public works supervisors, which I'm really excited about. A new water lead starting on Friday, or water supervisor starting on Friday. A new streets and safety supervisor started a few weeks ago. And our new climate and natural resources manager is now on board. So much great stuff going. One thing I didn't mention here is we also received funding from, or will be receiving funding from the county to support, or through the SHS funding program to support a cooling center, extended hours cooling center at the Leading Library. We opened 6 days so far this summer due to extreme heat and served over 64 people across those days. So it was really wonderful work.
So that's an extension grant?
Yeah, so it's the grant covers the extended hours. When the library is open, it's always a de facto cooling center. The grant allows us to stay open until 10 p.m., which is really important on those days where it's not getting hot. At 6 p.m. when the library would close, it's still 99, 100 degrees.
So is the new grant intended to provide shelter services in the winter? I mean,
This specific piece of the grant that we got just covers the heat, the cooling center elements in the summer. We have, it's for 2 years. Mm-hmm.
oh, okay.
And it covers the additional staff time to keep the library open during that time, and some supplies that we were able to provide folks.
So did we operate it on spec and we're now getting the money?
It's been a little complicated. The grants were, the Board of County Commission approved the grants, the awards in the late spring. It's just taken a while to get all the contracts up. So we did talk to the county. I mean, we wanted to open when the heat was extreme and not just say, oh, we don't have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So we did that a little bit on good faith, knowing that the county was going to cover those costs, and everything's moving forward swimmingly now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good questions. Oh yeah, and there's a new city manager. That's the last update. Thank you. Okay, next slide. So what's the priorities going forward? A lot of continued work on our strategic plan. That's a 3-year strategic plan we created with staff last year that has 4 main priorities: support our employees, work smarter together, become kind of a more efficient government and more data-driven, revitalize Milwaukie, and help Milwaukeeans most in need. I'm not going to bore you with all the details right now of the individual tactics in there, but it's on our website, and we're really excited to just continue moving that momentum forward. Lots more recruiting that's going to be happening. I will be recruiting for an assistant city manager. Hope to get that out in the next month. HR director, we are just wrapping up interviews for that. Our wonderful HR director has taken her dream job in Bend, so we're losing her and have to fill those really big shoes. We're going to talk more about this as we get into the quarterly, but we are still understaffed in our police department. It's just been really hard to fill those vacancies, so we're trying everything we possibly can to get more police officers on board. And engineers also have been a tricky one for us to recruit. So, but we just had a new civil engineer start about a month ago, and are really excited to launch some recruitments for engineering tech and another civil soon. And utility billing, that's going to be a vacancy we have coming up. It's a very critical job for the city. It's how all of our utility bills get processed and get put into our funding. So Team Finance is doing a great job coming up with like a temporary solution to make sure we don't miss a beat there, but also some long-term needs to recruit and refill that position. Third kind of priority for the next quarter, we're going to be helping this council get ready to set new goals. That'll happen around the end of the year, beginning of next year, but there's groundwork that needs to happen as we lead up to that so that we're ready and informed, or they are ready and informed to set their priorities for the next 2 years. And then I've mentioned data-driven culture. That's a big philosophy of mine. We're working on performance metrics for the city, which will then in turn really drive our budget analysis and the next budget book you guys all have the pleasure of reviewing in a couple of years.
So I just have a question. Is any of that data-driven culture, performance metrics going to be automated and integrated into the budget process? I mean, I know there's a fabulous system out there that West Lynn has.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's my...
Gold Star,
Yeah.
North Star, yes.
What's the name of their?
I don't know, but I can send everybody the link. You can go into any line item of their budget in any department and pull up the current data,
Yeah.
budget to actuals. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we want to head, Leslie. We do have a current contract for a budgetary software that we really haven't gotten the full benefit from. So Michael and his team have really been rolling up their sleeves, working with that vendor to see, what we can do in terms of dashboarding, in terms of more interactive and transparent storytelling around budget and data. I'm excited about what we're seeing, but we're also going to have a bit of a decision point coming up on if that's the system we want to continue using or look at other options. Our goal is by the next budget that we have as slick a tool as Westland that both allows you to look at the financial data, but also the performance
data. Right. I mean, the
Exactly.
integration of those really just
100%.
make a whole lot of things easier.
And we're going to be hearing later tonight about, our financial stability strategy. And a big part of that is making some tough choices. And I think those tough choices require good data about where resources are most needed. So we take this really seriously, and it's a big body of work, but we're committed to moving it forward on a good clip. So I do come to you then tonight, speaking of data-driven, with two kind of a preview of 2 organizational asks that I will be putting, in front of you and in front of council for consideration. The first is in our building division. So we need additional capacity to manage the really high levels of demand for building work. I've got a few stats here. You can click through these, Michael. Just this month, we've had a request for 355 inspections. Our average is about 165 permits issued a month, 156 plan reviews a month. And right now, our building team, which was a team of 3, we were very excited to hire a 4th person she started today, an internal hire. But that team is not able to get through all that work on their own. So we have to utilize contracts or intergovernmental agreements to meet that demand. And just to give you a sense of how much we're spending on that in the last 2 years, that's been over $300,000. In turn, so that's the demand side. In terms, when you look at the building fund, it's very healthy. It's at 4.9, almost $5 million, and it's growing steadily. It's grew 3% in the last fiscal year. We expect it to do the same this year, especially with what we're seeing come down the pike. That is great. We love seeing healthy funds. The thing with the building fund and most of our funds is that the funds are restricted. So I can't take those building fund dollars and use them to plug general fund gaps. They have to be used for expenses related to building. So I have looked at the data. I've listened to Patrick, who's our building official, who's online and can help answer any questions you might have. But I am convinced and prepared to ask for an additional FTE to support our building team. I think it makes smart financial sense given how much we are spending on those external contracts to get through this work. And I think it also will do a lot for the resiliency of that team and making sure they aren't just constantly overloaded with work. So I'll pause here and see if there are any questions you have for me or for Patrick about this ask.
I'm just wondering if one FTE will resolve all of the need for contracted costs or, I mean, if it will resolve all of it, it seems like a sort of a efficient thing to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm happy to let Patrick come off mute and chime in there as well. I think what Patrick will probably say is he would take more as well. I've tried, my sense here was to be a bit conservative. The other thing about adding FTE, and this was a philosophy of my predecessor, was you want to be really mindful of, adding FTE that you can sustain. The nature of the building industry is there are high points and low points, and Patrick has done a great job of keeping me, in educating me on that, and also that the folks taking these jobs know that is the fluctuation of the industry. So it's something that Patrick and I can continue to explore on if more than one would be the right number. And I appreciate the question. And Pat, if there is anything you want to add, go for it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, to very directly answer that question, will that delete $313,000 worth of IGA and contract work? No. That is a combination of building inspector and building plans examiner workload. To cover that entire amount, I would need 2 FTEs, 1 inspector, 1 plans examiner. My hope is to fill that building inspector position, expand their knowledge base and their career path to include plans examining and train up an individual. To be honest, that 313 is really low compared to what it could have been before I renegotiated contracts and utilized different IGAs. That was a tremendous effort by Joseph and myself using contacts in the area to really honestly get a better deal than we were getting a few years ago. But that is a low ball number, and that is why we've resulted in this huge surplus. Is, in my opinion, we've been behind on this hiring. And I think to really give the community what they deserve and need, it would require 1 highly skilled person or 2.
And Emma, I thought you were going to answer my question there for a second, and you came close. As you mentioned, that building is cyclical. So are you looking to add 1 on a regular status basis or like a 2-year limited duration?
Again, I'll welcome Patrick to chime in if he disagrees. I always prefer to do non-term limited positions. I think it provides, we get a better pool, and B, I think, and if conditions stay great, I would love to keep people for longer. We have very few, I think we might only have 1 term limited position right now, and it's caused, we've done a few extensions, and that's just a little kind of a tough way for someone to live their life, knowing, every 3 months. That said, I would, again, follow sort of Patrick's industry expertise and sort of what what we're seeing other cities do to meet this, variable need. And Pat, if you've got a different opinion, please feel free to chime in.
I believe the building division will continue to be able to support the new position permanently, not for interim or to get over any supposed hump in construction we may have right now. Milwaukee's got one of the healthiest appealing cities in the neighborhood. And that's why we're receiving all these larger projects over the last several years. And we've continued on that same path with Hillside redevelopment being a great example and the potential out of Murphy's Lot now. Those jobs alone are 2 to 3 years and would exceed that 2-year limited duration timeframe you were talking about.
A little bit off topic, but related, can you just generally describe the constraints on uses of the building fund?
Yes, the building fund has to be basically strictly for building. We're allowed proportionate shares for several different things, but payroll, everything like that, can't receive or go to general fund. It's an isolated fund, and then there's even actually a sub fund for electrical that is in there too. That has to be even more isolated than the building fund. So that electrical permitting specifically would only be usable on my contract with the county for services for inspections and plan review. That's Oregon administrative rules, and I could get those to you.
That's okay. I was just trying to get a feel for the whole thing. It really just sounds like it's really focused on plans review, permitting, not much else. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's there to be with the ebb and flow. We're providing a service. We shouldn't be making a profit as norm. But it's even more specific because building is the way it is. We go through 2 to 3 years of lulls. We have a 10-year to 15-year cycle. And Milwaukie has dodged all those bullets. And I believe that's why we're here with a surplus.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat, and agreed. And I think we feel the surplus is so healthy that it almost becomes unhealthy and why it's important to be spending it. So any other questions on that ask?
It's not really a question, but I will just say that I have had a few comments from residents recently about the time permit review is taking. So I'm supportive of getting more staff so that can be, hopefully streamlined. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so my next one is also an organizational need. This is around economic development workload that's been increasing due to really exciting direction from our MRC and our MRCAC, MRC Advisory Committee. I mentioned a little bit of some of these in my highlights from the last quarter. We've launched business improvement grants. We're just doing a lot more business coordination and support, which is great. But currently that's all being done by our, let's see if I can get all of his titles, Community Development Director, Acting Assistant City Manager, and Executive Director of the MRC, Joseph Brilio. And then we also have a really great urban renewal plan and 5-year action plan that includes focuses on economic development, transportation, and public amenities. So just a big body of work right now being carried by one individual mostly. So similarly to the last slide, we have a healthy MRC fund. It's currently at $7.1 million. Slightly different than the building fund. MRC dollars, there's a little more flexibility as to what they can be used for. It does have to tie to the focus area outlined in the urban renewal plan. So it's not just anything we want to spend money on. It really has to focus or connect to those 3 focus areas above. But like the building fund, good growth over the this one says last fiscal year, but really over the last several, which we expect to continue. So our ask here is to add an FTE of an economic development coordinator. And one thing you're going to hear Michael and I talk about a little later when we talk about financial stability is looking strategically for places where we may be able to offset some general fund expenditures with MRC dollars because the work is URA focused. So I mentioned, Joseph Brilio is doing kind of a one-man show on URA work. I think there is an opportunity for us to identify the proportion of his time that is being spent on that and offset some general fund dollars by putting some MRC money to it. I think that would be a wise financial move given the state of our general fund. So that's my second proposal, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I just ask a quick, when you say economic development, what does that actually mean in terms of projects?
Sure. And Joseph would really he'd be the hiring manager and the expert here, but what he and I have talked about is a fewfold. One is the administration of that business improvement grant program. So that's now an ongoing rolling fund. Applications coming in, needing to review those, needing to work with the applicants to, get more information, issue the grants, and then make sure that we're following up and doing the accountability pieces. Two is a lot of the relationship building and coordination pieces. We hope that we see, more of a business coalition forming in Milwaukie and want to be a partner in that as the city. But right now there's not really a staff member who can help, provide that coordination or that support. Three, I think, is some kind of downtown and URA placemaking work. So our neighbors to the south, Gladstone, have an economic development and tourism coordinator, a position that really is focused on how do they, has the city help promote the downtown area as a destination. I think Milwaukie has everything going for it in that front. We just don't really have the capacity right now on staff to do that tourism or advertising or placemaking work. It kind of gets sprinkled into other people's work plans. This person could really take that on.
Would it have anything to do with the marketing of our industrial areas or?
So I think in this proposal, we would want it to be focused on the URA because that's where the monies are coming from. That said, doing this also frees up capacity for our community development director who works on the whole city to be working on some other pieces as well. So I think you might not see this individual working specifically on the industrial areas, but I think it would free up capacity elsewhere.
So the, as I understood it, the city had contracted with somebody to manage the application process. So this would replace that John Southgate work.
So, and I think maybe Councilor Stavenger might have more. So John Southgate came in to assist in the development of the applications and I think support the MRCAC in developing it. But right now, Joseph is doing all the administration himself of the grants coming in.
Okay.
So I serve as the chair of the Community Advisory Committee for the Redevelopment Commission. And John helped us over the course of several meetings to develop the framework and the tools for the grant programs. And so we had really robust conversation about what sort of Milwaukie values need to be reflected in these tools, what sort of goals are reflected in the 5-year action plan, but are also true to who we are as a city and who we want to encourage to stay here and who we want to encourage to call Milwaukie home. So his help was immensely beneficial in that process. But now that we have the tools, he's not the helper for the implementation.
He's no longer on contract.
I imagine that he would be happy to help guide us on a larger level, but the administrative functions behind grant management is not his priority area.
Okay.
Council President? Oh, it's a stray goose.
Those wandering geese.
Okay, so those were the two sort of asks that we will plan to be putting into a supplemental budget request for council and the MRC's approval or consideration and approval respectively. The plan would be to to adopt those, I believe, on the September 17th regular session. I think that's the end of my update.
So, to you, Michael.
Moving along to the quarterly report presentation. I wanted to take this time to introduce to some of you have already met him, but Matt Dietz, who's our Assistant Finance Director. Matt joins us from the Oregon City School District. He's worked for an audit agency, Polly Rogers, in the past. He's a CPA. He's been here 3 months and he has made immense help on me. So we're happy to have him and just want to introduce him to everybody. The quarterly report. So we're about to go through the quarterly report for the fiscal year ending 6/30/2024. I just want to remind everybody that these are unaudited numbers. And right now, between now and November, we're behind the scenes making all the accruals and journal entries that we need to do between now and when the auditors come. Just a reminder that the city has new auditors this year, Moss Adams, who they were introduced to the audit committee last week, which Mary and Robert were at. Our partner is Ashley Austin, and I believe that I had sent a letter from her to all of you. If you have any questions, you can contact her directly. I've worked with her in the past and she is fabulous, so I'm very
You sent a
excited.
letter to the budget committee from her?
No, I sent it to council.
Oh, okay.
Council
That's
has
fine.
it and the audit committee has it. But I'm very excited that Moss Adams is here and yeah, looking forward to working with them. So this kind of go around for the quarterly report. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add in is that, you know, it was a positive introduction to Moss Adams. I think that they have a, you know, a deeper bench and more experience and that kind of thing. I will tell you, one of the things they're going to do is they're going to hold their feet to the fire to get their reports in on time, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
And so they laid out, you know, a calendar, a rhythm of their work, and they, in conjunction with Michael, have already moved one of the deadlines up, not back. So that's encouraging. And you know, we're probably smarting a little bit from recent experience, but you know, the senior partner assured us that they would not wait for the scheduled meetings if they find anything amiss, and they will come directly to the chair of the audit committee as soon as that's unearthed. We hope it's not, but it's good to hear that we're going to have a more ongoing and transparent relationship.
They were out 2 weeks ago for their week of interim field work, which is kind of their prep, just kind of coming out, looking at the lay of our land and how we have everything set up. Everything went great, 3 days. Something that I appreciate is they're a lot better responsive to questions that we have, things that we're trying to learn and get guidance on as we do things, we can answer immediately. So we've accelerated our timetable on the work papers that we're trying to do. In the past, it had been beginning of November. So on our end, we're trying to get those done by the beginning of October. So that gives us a little bit of buffer that we can ask them any questions, follow up, so that on 12/31, we have something issued. So going forward, back to the quarterlies, I'm coming up with a different approach here that I want to do it on the spreadsheet so we all have something to look at. And you guys can ask questions as we're going through and going along. But I just kind of have the different funds and the different highlight points that I wanted to make you guys all aware of. This is a FTE headcount as of June 30th, 2024. As a city, we budgeted for 149.3 FTEs. At the end of June, we were at 137.6. This doesn't take into account people that are on leave or people that are out due to injury. Those are still counted FTEs. The police staff is currently at 34. They're, I don't want to say they're hurting, but they're short-staffed at the time. Something that William had addressed to me was police overtime issue, that we can kind of get into that later. It's something that we're tracking, that they're on target for now, but it's just something to be aware of, that as the staffing issues are, as police staffing is low, overtime goes up, and that's a cost.
We had, at the time of this chart, we were down just under 2 positions, but you're saying we're down 4 positions now?
Yeah, currently we have officers out on leave, and we have an injury, 1 or 2 officers out on injury, that they're out 4 to 5 months. I guess talking to Chief Burdick, he said that this is a common thing, that when somebody goes out, they could be off for a couple weeks. We have, I believe, 1 police officer that just graduated the academy, and that they have 4 recruits that they're looking at. They're actively looking for police officers, and we're also looking for city engineers very aggressively. But for police officers, it's hard because you cannot just hire somebody off the street. It's a 1-year learning curve to get them out at least.
And we also, we do a background check on every police officer, and I was pretty surprised to learn that even once you get it, someone you think is gonna be a great hire, it's at about 75% don't pass the background check. So, so it's a slow process, but I really commend our HR team and our police staff who are spending hours of every week in interviews trying to fill that gap.
So I'm wondering if there, it seems like the ability to control overtime is related to the ability to be fully staffed.
Yep.
But the wild card in there is when you have people on leave or injury or whatever. Are there any mechanisms that cities use to be able to, have extra help during that time?
Emma's
Other
given
than overtime?
Emma's given the ability for us to hire ahead to FTE positions, trying to get to that. We thought that we were to that point where we were fully staffed and trying to be completely staffed, but then through the course of life, officers have come down and the injuries happen.
I'm
Retirement.
And
I'm just
retirements.
vaguely
Thank you.
recalling in my own direct budget experience in the Middle Ages that we did have some kind of mechanism of what was called extra board, that you could basically have positions that you managed over the, the full biennial, it was an annual budget, but that it does seem like that that could be complex, but it might help,
Yeah, do the overhiring piece to make sure we can absorb the kind of shocks that come with the industry is important. The other thing that's pretty common to do in the police world is work backs. So someone who does retire or is eligible for retirement retires, but then works back for a period of 6 months or a year. It allows us to retain some leadership experience too. So that's something that we utilize and will continue to do so. Yeah, we're not alone in facing this challenge, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's just what I was going to add, because in working with HR colleagues across the country, it's the common lament is filling police officer positions. And, it is at least a 1-year position. Just getting on the waiting list for the academy can be a few months. They go through the academy and then they've got a year of field training. And so even when the goal is to overfill and have a couple extra, it just doesn't happen. And just attracting people to police work right now is very challenging.
Can I ask, this 36.7 actual FTE number, does that include the 2 that we're supposed to give to TriMet at some point in time? Or they will pay for those, right, when we have the officers to give?
They will, and this does include it. And the reason for the delay on that is exactly this. It's the capacity issues.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right, so moving right along, this is a summary of all the city's funds. Among all city funds, city assets fell from the previous year from 79.4 million to 75.8 million. We can go through here and dissect them individually. I just wanted to remind everybody that the majority of the city's revenues come in November through property tax payments. So the influx of cash comes in November. So general fund revenues. On a whole, the city obtained 97% of their revenues that we budgeted for. The one that's kind of lagged behind in our tracking is the intergovernmental. We're still doing the accruals for that for the fourth quarter. We just got the numbers from the state on what we can book for those, so that number will increase. Also of note too is in the past budget, we were budgeting 1.5% for investment earnings. Lately, it's been a great market for investment earnings. The LGIP is currently generating 5.3%. The city has 2 Piper Sandler T-bill accounts that are coming in at about just at 5%. So you'll see in a lot of these funds that the investment earnings are very healthy, and it's due to the fact that we were budgeting low on what we were going to get in investment or in interest, and we far exceeded it.
And did we change that calculation for the budget we're currently in?
I believe we did it to 3, but you're at the mercy of the environment and economics, so you don't want to have it too much. We kind of use that as a catch-all so that, if things are great, it's kind of benefited money that we could use from, but we don't want to necessarily budget for that, just in case there's a downturn.
That was my question as well. So given that they're now talking about a rate cut at the federal level. Okay.
All right, next slide. General fund expenditures. Most of these are right on target. The public works admin costs were lower due to park project delays. Those are coming out of fiscal year 25. I believe Scott Park across the street from us is currently being constructed. So some of those costs didn't come out of fiscal year 24, resulting in the low public works expenditure number. Also, IT costs here are including subscription costs for fiscal year 25. So we're doing an accrual so that we take those costs and spread them across next year. So it's technically not over budget. We just need to move those costs into the upcoming fiscal year. And also police overtime. In the previous biennium, there was a budget of $592,000 for police overtime. I believe this time last year, we did a supplemental budget to bring it up to $804,000, which was sustained into fiscal year 25-26 budget. So as we're looking through and tracking that, it's only 6 weeks in, so it's still pretty early, but it seems that we're sufficient in budgeting for that, but it's something that I am watching just to make sure that it doesn't get off the rails too much.
So what you're saying is the supplement that was added in the last budget was budgeted for in the current budget, and it appears
At
to
that
be
level.
adequate.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
it's a much better way of thinking. General fund type expenditures, I just wanted to show here expenditures by type. There's a reoccurring theme kind of in this, is that our capital outlay is behind and our expenditures aren't there. Some of that is due to low staffing and engineering. Some of that is due to projects being behind. It's something that we're aware of, but I just think that this table illustrates how behind we are in doing capital projects with respect to budget.
Michael, just a quick question. When you say that you're over or under the anticipated actuals in that second to the last column, is that the actuals that you've projected for the quarter? Or is that actuals for the rest of the fiscal year?
So you're saying the 7.3 million?
Well, I mean, it was actually, I think it might be easier to explain if you go one slide back, but in a particular line item, like, let's say, city council. So right now, the city council budget is under the projected or the anticipated actuals by about 47. But that doesn't actually mean that we're coming in really great. That means that we still have the rest of the fiscal year, right? You're not saying that it's the actuals for the quarter.
This is
This
last,
is last fiscal year.
So,
this is Q4
so
of
that's
fiscal year
what rolled
24.
over that into beginning working capital?
We don't roll savings over
Okay.
budget to budget. So this is just saying, at the end of the last fiscal year, the council had spent 84% of their budget. And
Okay.
so then we're starting fresh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so beginning working capital is where all of these savings like translated
In
into,
the-
okay,
The
all right, got it.
unspent goes into the beginning balance for
The
the next
beginning
year.
fund balance, yep.
Yeah.
Great question.
And again, these numbers aren't final. We're still there's still 2 check runs that we've done since this time period. So we're still closing the fiscal year end before the auditors come in, but it's a pretty good close snapshot of where we are.
You've heard me say this before, I'm a big believer in, in dashboards, and I know you have plans to, to come up with the gold-plated dashboard, but I mean, how are we doing this now? Because I think you just have to watch that spending slope. It doesn't mean you can't get off the spending slope, but you have to, when you're off of it, you have to have a good reason why you're off, whether it's above or below, and you can explain it, well. I would also ask the question, do you ever use that spending slope as a indicator of staff capacity, especially in something like capital programs monitoring and the ability to carry those out? I think that'd be a very good indicator that, you got excess capacity or you got, less than ideal capacity.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think there's a lot more we could be doing. I mean, in terms of mechanically how we're doing this now, it's all Excel spreadsheets. It's the amazing finance team and all their Excel spreadsheets. And I really want to get us to a more, professionalized way. And we're making great strides there. And then, yes, I think the coupling of this with this as a performance measure and this coupled with other performance measures is going to be really important. I totally take your point on the capacity piece. It's just kind of a nuanced story where, you could look at, wow, they're really underspending their CIP, which means, maybe they're being inefficient. And I think the capital dollars doesn't tell you the full story of what those engineers are spending their time doing that isn't then leading to the capital money getting spent. So it's a one piece of the overall puzzle and something we have to put together to tell that story.
I also think, I've watched it for years, the CIP money a couple things factor into that, why it's not spent in the year before. Sometimes it's engineers, it's like being short engineers. And sometimes it's you start a project, you've held a project and you started in May when it's starting to be nice weather, but you don't get your first billings till July or August, right? So it doesn't always mean the projects aren't happening. It just means the way the project timeline starts and the billing happens, so.
And that's an excellent point, because in these last 2 check runs that come in, contractors are waiting till the end to finalize their bills. And then we get those in July and we're putting them back into this. So those numbers will go up. There'll be more expenditures. It's just what we have as of now is reflected in this.
Right.
Moving along, the City Hall Fund, we are planning to close this out. Currently, it shows 142,000 in it. These are budgeted for arts expenses, which
What is going on with that?
Ooh, I saw a prototype earlier this week. It's very delayed. We will completely own that. Been some challenges.
Art in the downstairs of City Hall.
But I saw a video demonstration of the big mechanical dogwood interactive art piece that's going to be in the lobby. I love that face because that's the face you need to bring. It's awesome. It'll be installed in September. So
Oh, wow.
coming soon.
We're planning to move these funds for next fiscal year into the city manager budget so that we can close out the city hall fund and move on. Debt service fund, this is trending how it should. It's a low balance because we're accruing for the debt service through the year, and then in June, we make those payments to wipe it out. So this fund is flowing as it should. The construction excise tax, it is a little low in some of the revenues, and some of that is due to the timing of developments coming online. Joseph Briglio will be here on September 17th to talk to council more about the construction excise tax.
Has our $2 million
Payment?
allocations gone out to
Yes.
the,
Yes.
both of them?
That's shown in
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Building fund, which we spoke about earlier, continues to be healthy, 4.9 million. As Emma said before, over the past biennium, building has paid 313,000 in consulting costs. So that's the reason for the FTE that Patrick is seeking so that we can do that work in-house. Transportation fund revenues, again, some of these are low due to fourth quarter receivables that we just received in the last week. Gas tax, vehicle registration, intergovernmental local tax, those are fourth quarter allocations that we need to accrue for this, that are coming in August, or in July, excuse me. Transportation expenditures continue to be behind in capital outlay, again, due to staffing and project delays. That might be a repetitive narrative, I'd say, on some of these. The funds, the water fund, there's a $2.3 million intergovernmental. That's for ARPA funds. That's reserved for Stanley Reservoir. We have those funds kind of off our books. We have the revenues on there so that when we do the project, which I think is supposed to be started the second half of this year. So there's no revenue with it, but there's no expense either. So there's kind of a wash. The ARPA funds have to be obligated by 12/31/20 of this year, 2024. And I know that engineering and finance is working together to make sure that we obligate those and use all those funds in a timely manner.
When are they, what is the date to obligate again?
12/31
Of this year?
of this year.
Okay, and that's the line item of an intergovernmental, which basically
Yeah,
is-
the 2.2 million. I should have made
Okay.
these slides bigger for my eyes, but
So a follow-up question, does that mean that the funds have to be obligated for expenditures or expended by the end of the year?
obligated.
Obligated, okay.
That would be a miracle.
Yeah. Wastewater fund, again, there's same thing, a $1.7 million in intergovernmental ARPA funds. That I believe, this is with Stanley as well. There's also an Ardenwald project that hasn't been started that's supposed to start end of this year, beginning of next year. Stormwater fund, this is the one that declined. We spent more than we brought in by 222,000. This is due to Washington Street improvements. All the work being done out on Washington Street is all stormwater related. And we are showing expenses in that. System development charges, this kind of goes with the ebbs and flows of development and construction. So,
Could I ask,
yeah,
on the stormwater fund where we overspent, what will, will anything be done to adjust that out?
Is that for transfers?
I'm looking at the total expenditure, total expenditures.
Because as an overall,
Oh, yeah,
it's at
right.
74%.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'm not,
I
I'm
was
sorry, I'm
trying to-
not seeing the over, where we went over.
Yeah, I didn't follow your narrative on the chart of what you were talking about, is what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
Where's the
just-
Washington Street over expenditure or whatever?
Well, what I was trying to say was our expenses exceeded our revenue, but that's how we projected it to be. There's a
Okay.
decline in the fund balance from 7 million to 6.7. A lot of these fund balances have been growing in balance over the years because we're taking in the revenue, but we haven't been doing the work. This one is kind of opposite to that. And Washington Street is kind of the example that we're doing the work, and that's the reason for the expenditures.
But in the overall picture, it's
It's
still
still a very
within
healthy
the
fund.
budgeted funds.
Yeah.
Okay, that, now I understand, I think.
Yeah, the system development charges, this goes with development and construction projects. We try and budget for these, but sometimes we aren't always accurate. So I think that there's a lot of development that's coming online. And as that stuff comes online in future years, we're going to see growth in this SDC fund.
So the SDC fund is all the SDCs? I guess I can't believe I haven't ever asked this question before, but it's all the SDCs that stay with the city. We do collect some SDCs that go to other entities, to West
County,
and to the
West,
Parks District and stuff. But the ones that stay with the city, the water, the stormwater, transportation, they stay in this fund as opposed to going to a water fund, transportation fund.
I believe that's the case, yeah, because we take in the money, which is reflected here, and then we're paying it out to everybody else. And then, once that's all paid, this is what's left over, and that's the city's portion.
When you say paying it out to everybody else, who's everybody else?
What we pay to West, we pay to the county, we pay,
Okay.
to North.
So so Milwaukie basically collects the SDC for all of the entities, allocates it out and keeps the balance.
We're the front face of it, so when
Okay,
people come up
right.
to the building counter to pay, they pay us in total, and then we allocate it out.
And we budget only our portion.
Yes.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question about that? So if we are paying a certain amount to the county for parks, then am I understanding you correctly that that's not actually captured in this graph? Or it is captured, but it's shown as an in and an out? Does that make sense? I guess
Yeah.
if I'm wondering how much, this makes sense that the fund balance, is what we keep. That's our net. But I'm wondering if the total revenue that's listed here is the gross, I guess.
I think it's just the city portion, correct? We don't put the other portions on the books?
I am not sure. I'm pausing to see if Judy knows this. My thought was that we take all of it, we're counting the gross of it in here.
Okay.
And then as we pay it out, I can look into that and let you know.
I think, for the layperson, it might be really helpful to know how much of our annual SDCs go toward parks and how much go toward roads and how much go towards sewer.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that point.
I think we can look into that. I think it's going to fluctuate based on what buildings being done in Milwaukie and what SDCs are getting paid. And then I think based on that, it's a percentage, but I'm not entirely sure. I can look into it.
So I'm asking a question on your question. Which is that my reading of this is that the city is only budgeting its portion of the SDCs, because otherwise we would have to have an expenditure line item and an intergovernmental expenditure line item going out. That's the way I read
Okay.
this chart.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I stand corrected.
That's helpful, but I feel like there's still a blind spot.
Oh, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that
No, but
you're-
I really appreciate the way that, the interpretation of how this reads. And I'm wondering if maybe it's even a note that gets added to this that just says, like, not pictured.
Yeah, and because
You
this
know,
does
Uncle
come up
Wally.
every time Peter comes to us on rates. I mean, we talk about, he gives us a sample of SDCs, like, this year will probably be stormwater, because I know he's working on stormwater planning. And he shows us, where we are vis-à-vis other cities. And we know, I mean, people complain like, oh my God, those SDCs are so high, but we know that like half or more, I think, of our SDCs don't stay with us. They go out. And so I think it would be helpful to have
Deserves a pie
something.
chart. It
that-
deserves a pie
It
chart.
deserves a pie chart. It might deserve a pie chart.
Yeah, I'm just echoing what I've already heard, is that I think that we need some clarity here. And boil it down to, what, someone who doesn't know their way around a financial, statement can understand. And I wouldn't want us to answer this as here's an answer from the last meeting. I want it in here in the notes or something like that, or a supplementary pie chart, whatever, yeah.
Or certainly on the new budget going forward, right? Yeah.
What could be added to the report?
Okay, we can do that for next time. Finally, wrapping up, the Urban Renewal Fund. Again, this is another healthy fund at 7.1 million. This is, as Emma was saying, we're looking to add an FTE so that we start projects, so that we start using some of these funds. And then finally, we kind of wanted to close with a little bit of the 5-year forecast. Nothing too much has changed from when we were here in May. Still, there's a shortfall where we're under policy in year 3. And then in years 4 and 5, we're under the requirement. It's something that we're continuing to monitor, and
Do we have that chart?
it's not in there. I can send it to you.
Okay.
This was a last minute ad, but I can send it to you. But it's the same as it's very close to what was in the budget documents in May and June.
And I want to appreciate, this was a late ask from me to the finance team, but and you'll hear about it in our last piece of tonight's meeting when we talk about financial stability. To me, it's so important that we keep a close eye on that forecast and we don't just wait to look at it again 2 years from now. So you are going to see it every quarter. And yes, right now, it hasn't moved much because in terms of financial data, we're 1 month into the new fiscal year. But as we go forward, I think it will start telling a story as we see more actuals come in on revenue.
So what you're saying is you're going to be giving us a financial forecast chart, not as part of the quarterly report of the previous quarter, but as where we are right now.
Yes, and I think we will be including it in quarterlies going forward, just so that it's an easy part of the packet you can expect to be seeing.
And this will be as of 6/30/2024, as of the end of
End
the
of-
previous fiscal year.
Okay. The one you're sending us? is
Yes.
gonna be- Okay.
Yes. Questions or comments? Sorry, I went kind of fast through some of those, but if you have any questions? I know it's 7 o'clock now. We have another kind of quick presentation. Hopefully everybody's good for time.
And I will say this next one, council, will look very familiar to you. This is what we presented to you at your July council retreat. We kind of gave you a sneak preview. We've incorporated some of the feedback we got from you into that, but we want to make sure the full budget committee is up to speed on this newfangled thing we're calling the financial stability strategy. So
I might need
Help?
getting
Okay.
this on Zoom.
Technical assistance, 1 sec. Then go back to Zoom. So to share, bottom of the middle, reading it. Click that first one. Share. Yeah.
William, can you see the financial stability strategy online?
Yes, I can.
Great.
All right. Now,
You gotta go to the presentation view. So go down here to PowerPoint, that guy, and then click on that one. Think.
is it this?
You mind if I? Close some of these.
Yeah.
I think you might have to drive it from over here.
Oh,
There you go. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so in July, Emma we all met with council for a council retreat and talked about financial stability strategies looking forward. We kind of had 3 moving parts pyramids that we were kind of looking for. Our objectives, stabilizing costs, which are find ways to further stabilize costs across the organization. Review and maximize existing revenue streams, and support council in selecting one to 3 new revenue strategies to pursue based on agreed upon criteria. And our end goal is to ensure that the 5-year forecast remains up to date.
Sorry, on my presentation where all those bullets are.
Oh, sorry, I read them all. All right, I'll keep that in mind as I come back to this. All right. Zooming in to stabilizing costs, we're looking to review organizational structure for potential efficiencies and cost savings. That's how kind of in the last budget, we did the hold the line budget where we were kind of looking at ourselves and examining what things that we cost, what things do we need, trying to make sure that we continue that hold the line methodology. We continue reviewing and streamlining technical service or technological services. I know that IT has done a great job of going through and looking at for example, our phone bill and finding ways where we're duplicating costs between landline and an internet line and making sure that we reduce all the amount of landlines that we use. I believe Joe saved us about $2,000 a month recently just by looking at this exercise. There's a lot of ways that there's ways that we've done things as a city that we can look to improve. And I think we're always just asking of what's a new way to do it and is it cost effective? And then, as I said before, being fiscally prudent and continuing to hold the line.
The only thing I'd add to this is that, I think that, as I mentioned with our supplemental ask around potentially offsetting some of our community development salary with MRC dollars, that's part of that, looking at that organizational structure and just seeing where those opportunities are. Are there things that are general funded that maybe shouldn't be, and vice versa? So just that real connection.
And I recall that we discussed I recall it because I just read it in the minutes, in the budget, that there would be a study done in terms of the cost allocations, right? Yeah.
Which leads us to review, we want to review and update our fee schedule to ensure that we're couping the recost. That's something that I don't think we've done as a city in 5 to 10 years. We've kind of just been increasing it based on inflation a little bit. We want to do an internal dive into it to make sure that the fee schedule represents, so that we're recouping the cost efficiently, or we're maximizing as much of the fee as we can. We also want to propose improvements that could increase revenue capture. I think this is more for utility billing. I know that as we've had transition in utility billing, we've kind of went through and looked at how we've set up revenue structures. And I think that there's ways that we can capitalize on getting more revenue out of the utility billing. Maybe we haven't been efficient in capturing rate codes and everything in the system, but that's an opportunity where we can look in there and make sure that we're making sure all the rates are up to date and on a timely basis so that we're not losing money as a city.
A couple more to add on that. I mean, I think there's one, the mayor mentioned we're doing a stormwater system plan. I think there's real opportunity in our stormwater, kind of the asset inventory that informs stormwater rates to make that more accurate. And two, you know, we do meters, we do manual meter reads to get our, you know, to inform our utility bills. To switch that to a more digital system is very expensive. However, cities that do it see often it pays for itself in a very short number of years because of how much more accurate that can be. So I'm not committing to or saying we're going to do that, but it's the type of thing we're going to explore and do that cost benefit analysis of if those technological upgrades might cost us a bit in the near term, but save us in the long term.
So finally, for identifying new revenue opportunities, we're looking to help council identify 1 to 3 new revenue ideas for implementation. We went through and had a couple suggestions, which will come up later. We also want to communicate with stakeholders why new revenue sources are needed and secure support for new revenue mechanisms. So as I went through a little bit. Our scope and parameters, we're focused on the general fund revenue. We want to stabilize a path forward. Our goal is to balance the 5-year fiscal forecast. That's the last slide that we had in the previous presentation. We want to get that from red to black. And we're looking to make quarterly updates to you guys as a budget committee so that you can see that as we go forward. The criteria for new revenue that we're using as a lens to kind of filter through this is, I'm not sure if you can see the top one there, which is the questions we're asking are, is it feasible? Can we implement this by the end of the biennium? Legality, what is the risk of the legal challenge or is there a lawsuit? Political appetite, what is the political risk for? And what is the likelihood this gets referred to voters? Implementation path, can this be implemented by council alone? Does it require a council vote? Revenue generating potential, how much money could this bring in into what fund? Alignment with goals, does this strategy have co-benefits that advance other policies or put policies at risk? Equity, who may be I'm not going to be able to pronounce that one. Disproportionately burdened by this strategy. Ongoing administration, how much staff time and infrastructure is needed to oversee this? Enforcement, will we be able to collect the revenue? Variability, how predictable and sustainable would this revenue stream be? And proven track record. Have any other cities done any of this?
And so just, we know that's a long laundry list. What I've asked Michael and team to do is basically a massive, like, matrix eval. So we're gonna now show you a big laundry list of ideas, and we're gonna ask if there's any you wanna add to it. Right now, we are at that stage of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And then his team is gonna take each of those ideas and evaluate them across those criteria. When we meet next time, that's what we'll be bringing back is the outcome of that analysis to see what's bubbling up as something that really might have potential as a new revenue strategy.
I just have a question on the fourth point, implementation path. Can it be implemented by staff alone rather than council? Because then the second one is council approval.
I wondered if the second one meant to say a public vote.
I think
or
it
a
probably
resident
did.
vote.
So I think what we were trying to get there is this something that the 5 members of city council can vote to approve, or
Or
does
a
it?
public vote.
A public vote.
Public
I think
vote.
it,
I think
it's a
yeah, okay,
typo.
because that doesn't make otherwise sense.
You're so good, Leslie. Eagle eyes.
All right, new revenue opportunities, universe of options. Some of the changes to our existing revenue streams that we're looking at, property taxes, 5-year levy, permanent cap raise, are some future things we can look at. Business license tax update. I know that code is written in the past, and there's some updates I think that can be made maybe to make it more revenue producing. Further increase to the right-of-way fees, which we all did from 5 to 8%. Advocacy for changing library tax rate. Install photo red light program monitors, I believe down on Macadam. And leverage URA monies to offset general fund. Oh, McLaughlin, sorry.
Yeah, let's put some on Macadam.
Past 7. Sorry about that. I can get this part here. Some new revenue streams that we've been looking at. Sorry, I keep forgetting that piece. These are ones that have come out that you've shared with Emma, and these were ones that were the red are what was brought out in the council retreat. Possible new ideas were paid public parking, delivery fee, public safety fee, credit card fees. That's a hot topic in the finance world on how other cities are doing that. A luxury tax, vacancy tax, land use tax. And I believe Adam had some ideas on big box store tax, a food and beverage tax, a home sale tax. I believe if you sell your home, a tax on that. Excise water fee or a parks fee. Infrastructure investments that could boost revenue. We could, as Emma was saying before, upgrade to the digital meters would help streamline the UB billing. And an idea for new services would be a broadband fee, which I
have a
believe
question.
you guys have looked at that in the past.
In terms of the upgrading to digital meters, our meters read water usage, but the water usage isn't that the basis for our wastewater stuff also? I mean, would there be an opportunity to have that as a shared cost with Wes?
Oh, good point.
A great point. I don't think we've explored this far enough to get to that point, but something we can talk about. Wes is also coming to give their annual update to council this month or September, so might be something to ask them when they're here as well. But great idea.
Although I think their fee is an
Unit fee.
an equivalent dwelling unit fee, and it's not prorated on the water. I think the prorated stuff is for our part of the, I don't know. I don't want to get in, I don't want to say too much because I'm not sure. But
I
it's
think
worth
you're-
it. We
I think-
definitely should
I
explore
think
it.
you're right, but their revenue depends on us, our water.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question about the water meters, which is the digital water meters, is that mostly like we're a savings and not paying people to go read the meters? It's not finding new revenue?
I think it's a fewfold is my understanding. It's both the efficiencies cost. I mean, there's obviously a big capital upfront cost, but then, yeah, I think it would, the not having to pay meter readers would be a savings. But I think what other cities have seen is it actually is just the accuracy does result in actual more revenue captured. And so it's just, there's human error in the system we've got now, and the machines, they can sometimes do it better than us.
Another aspect is if there's a leak, right now with meter readers, we're only looking at it every 30 days. If we had something that was digital, we could look at it every 30 minutes. So if there was a leak, we could get it, there would be an alarm that we could see. So there's an environmental piece to it too, of cost, and a financial cost.
So we can get the stormwater to pay part of it too, huh?
So I just want to, I know we're over time tonight, and I don't want to keep you guys late, but I just want to, the next slide Michael's going to talk about is sort of our glide path, like what's the timeline for this effort? And what you see on the screen here, we're not saying we're endorsing all these ideas. These are all the ideas that are coming up and all the ones we want to run through that long list of criteria on the previous page. If you have other ideas that you've heard of or are intrigued by, you can throw them out to us now. You can also throw them out to us via email. We'd like to kind of close down the universe of options in September so that we can then start the analysis and bring back the filtered list to you. But please do let us know if you have other ideas.
So the one that jumps out to me is short-term rental tax. A lot of cities have done that. We wouldn't be the first.
I'm adding that to the list. So our timeline for this now through September, we're defining the strategy and scope and evaluation criteria, compiling the universe of options. So if you guys think of anything, let me or Emma know. You can send us an email. Forecast review and fine tuning. We're obviously at the budget committee meeting now. Next step is October through December. We're going to do a screening of the revenue options, communication campaign prep, maybe figure out what a strategy for communicating is, a forecast review and fine timing, and come to you at the next budget committee meeting in November and kind of give you a synopsis of that. Kind of looking forward a little bit. And then next year would be, as council goes through goal setting, they can kind of narrow these down to 1 to 3 options that they recommend, and then an implementation strategy going forward. April through June, we can implement as we define and continue a communication path going forward. And then beyond that, if there's anything that needs to go on the November ballot, we would look at that as well. Finally, how do we tackle this as a team? Sorry for this being kind of cut off up top, but the roles for council are to determine values, goals, and evaluation criteria, contribute ideas to the universe of options, provide input and direction at clear milestones, and make policy decisions. Help communicate need and direction to the community. Our role, my role as finance director, overall this project management, kind of define the deadlines for the financial asks and inputs, doing a financial analysis and idea of the evaluation and see what kind of pans out and what doesn't, and keeping the forecast monitoring up to date. Roles for city manager, oh, sorry. I'm just gonna go through and put them all there up front. Roles for the city manager's office is to coordinate with you and council on communications and to lead the public engagement. And then the roles for our department directors are to contribute ideas to the universal of options, help with analysis, vetting, and subject matter expertise, be aware of their budget and continue to monitor and find if there's any ways that they can cut costs. And also to consult their peers in other cities and see what they're doing. A great way, I know that there's a tool that we have as finance directors where we're always sending emails back and forth to one another. Is there a better way? How does this work for you? We're always in contact, so kind of copy and paste is a good way that I found that cities do things. If it works for one, we're open to it. And I believe that's all I had for this. If you guys have any questions.
I have one. What was the delivery fee for?
My understanding is it's like, things like DoorDash, Grubhub,
Oh, really?
short-term delivery, or Amazon. There's some other cities looking at this. Lots of trips being made on public right-of-way to do these on-demand deliveries. And a lot of use on our roads and not a lot of recouping of that impact.
And frankly, a climate impact that I don't think we know how to quantify in our climate action work either.
Okay. No further questions. Are there any other items the committee would like to discuss? Hearing none.
Well, just to be clear, Michael's inviting people to send him other revenue things like this next week before September 1 rolls around.
Other agendas, ideas, I think all
Before
of them are on the
September
table.
1? Oh, I thought it was into
Well, it's-
September.
It through September. We'll
Yeah.
keep adding to the universe of options through September, but we're closing it down on September 30th.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But we're trying to paint a broad brush, so any ideas that people
Earlier
have-
is better, though.
Yeah, earlier is better, but any ideas you have, send it to us, and then we're gonna use the criteria filter to kind of go through and narrow them down to 1 to 3.
Okay.
Is there any efficient way to look at like which cities in the state are not facing these budget shortfalls and kind of like see what taxes they have going on that we don't? Is that like a reasonable thing to do?
What a logical suggestion. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that finance could definitely do. And as Michael was saying, he's tapped into the sort of network of finance directors. So I think that's a great question. It's, as we talked about through the budget process and what the League of Oregon Cities is showing is this is definitely a widespread and shared challenge, but not every single city is facing these challenges. So I think that's really smart. So if you will look and see what some gold stars are doing and what we might learn from that.
It feels like a really elementary suggestion, but I just,
I mean, it's worth checking with LOC. I think they probably have a good handle, but I don't think it's very many that don't face it. I think it's pretty few. And like we saw this year, for example, Gresham had a levy, has gone into the 5-year levy business, had a levy to pay for more police and fire. A lot of cities are finding themselves in that point.
I think I was surprised when we looked at the data from the League of Cities, that it was like 2/3 or something. It was like less than I thought would be facing those budget shortfalls based on the property tax cap situation. So anyway,
Interesting.
that's my memory.
Okay.
Anyway.
Along with the idea of looking at what other cities are doing, is there there's a community of interest among cities for balancing the budget, and is there some benefit if multiple adjoining cities enter into some of these things, like delivery taxes, so it's not just, oh, they hit Milwaukie, but they hit a whole swath. with the same tax. So it seems like there could be some strategic benefit for some of these taxes if they're chosen.
A great point and something we can definitely look into. You can even add it to our long list of criteria. Like, is there an opportunity here for collaboration or coordination? I think that's a really great point, Mary.
The problem for us is, I mean, I brought that up with, not with revenue, but with regulating things like the scooters and the e-bikes and everything. Like, why don't we have somebody, why isn't Metro or somebody who can convene regionally? Why is Portland setting the policy that really dictates to the rest of us what our policy has to be? Because we aren't all, regulating in that space. I guess, I mean, it's absolutely worth questioning and thinking about, but if it means having to move a regional discussion, it's probably not going to meet our timeline threshold.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I think, this last bit of the presentation really focused on revenue generation, but there's really three parts to that strategy, right? And one of them is the cutting costs. And one thing I really appreciated Michael's leadership on is looking at ways where maybe we could trim down some costs by partnering with Gladstone or other neighboring places on things like meter readers, things where we're all entering into individual contracts. Is there a cost savings if we did it together? So that's that, in addition to looking at what revenue generation there could be, and there's also cost savings that the cities can look at by sharing the load.
I guess I just wanted to say that some years ago, which Lisa remembers, I worked with Bonnie Dennis on a revenue study for Milwaukie, and we worked very closely with the revenue folks at the city of Portland, who basically charge anybody who puts a tire on their streets and told us about how they have watched a delivery van park in front of their building and they were not in their database and they immediately generated a letter and left it on their windshield. All I'm saying is I think there's some data in the city system about some of those things, and some of them related to like, my recollection is Milwaukie only has a very small business license. It's not specific to different industries.
Correct.
And there are different kinds of regulations of different industries that might be a factor, I guess.
If you have that study or something, can you
I don't, but
resend
it should be in the city's archive because it was presented in a work session, I believe. And I did go and look and see if I had it and I found email about it in the end of 2014. And Lisa said she remembered the presentation in 2015. So it'll be that time period of whatever.
That was under the rubric of business license, like Bonnie
Right.
did a whole presentation on business license option, business tax options, yeah.
Right.
That'll be helpful.
Okay, now, any more questions? If not, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
A second?
I second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0.